can live by themselves. They have separate quarters under one roof, essentially. And they do most of their ADLs, their activities of daily living. So showering and clothing, grooming, everything, pretty much independently and self-sufficiently. There is a commons area where they can have meals. Typically it's 2 meals a day that are provided at independent living. And there's typically a caregiver on call. So they'll have call buttons. I'm sure you've seen those commercials, or you've been to senior living communities, and almost all the residents, unless they request otherwise and want to maintain some kind of dignity for whatever reason, and don't want the call button, that's their prerogative, and it happens sometimes. But most of them have a call button, so if they need anything, they can hit it. And that's pretty much independent in a nutshell. They'll help out with the housekeeping and the laundry, the grounds, and 2 meals a day, essentially. But otherwise, you're pretty much on your own still. You drive yourself around, all that. Then you graduate, as I say, to assisted living. And that's when you need a little bit more help with your ADLs. And it depends. Some people just need maybe a little bit of help getting up in the morning out of bed, dressing a little bit. Some people might need help showering. Some people might need help brushing their teeth, combing their hair. A lot of them, if not almost all of them, at this point, have maybe a little bit of memory care issues. So almost all of them need medication management assistance, which is huge, of course. If you screw up a little bit with your meds, say 2 days in a row, it can really, of course, I'm sure as you all know, can affect your temperament tremendously. As well as your health, of course. So assisted living, it's all under one roof. It provides 3 meals a day as opposed to 2. We help, we do all the housekeeping, we do all the laundry, we help whenever needed, like I said, with your ADLs. We do transportation, so say you have a doctor's appointment, or say you just want to go shopping at Walmart, we'll take you. Or if you're still pretty independent, it's limited, but some folks still drive and have their cars there. We do have a primary care physician, a preferred primary care physician. It's a third party, it's contracted, that comes in and sees our residents. Typically once a week, it's on call in between. We have a nurse who works just a typical 40-hour week. She's on call 24/7. I'm the executive director, so I'm on call 24/7, 365 for better or worse. I realized recently I took a flight somewhere, and I got plane. I said, "Man, I'm a pretty relaxed person anyways." I'm ultra relaxed. I'm uber relaxed right now. And it hit me. I thought to myself, this is the first time, this is the only time, no matter what travesty occurs, nobody can get in touch with me. And it's true. I really am on call 365, 24/7. And Dad will attest, I don't know if I had talked to him about it before, but until I moved home recently, I don't know how much he took that to heart until he sees it now. It's true, but the whole premise, I guess, behind the industry is based on folks not being able to take care of themselves and living self-sufficiently and independently. So essentially, it's based around preventing accidents from happening to the best of your ability. And it's not error-proof by any means. I think that's where I'm kind of going ad lib right now. I wasn't planning to talk about this, but some folks, as far as family members or even residents themselves, or just the general public, I think, are under the misconception that, hey, I'm going to bring my loved one in to assisted living, and there's not going to ever be any accidents, anything that goes wrong. The whole industry, like I said, is based on things going wrong and preventing them. So we try to limit. I think the main objective for us is to maintain the health and the safety and the happiness of our residents, but it's to limit the accidents from happening. We can't prevent it 100% of the time. I think a lot of people confuse that. But nevertheless, so what else about assisted living? We have what's called caregivers. We have resident assistants, and that's who generally helps with the daily activities of the residents. We have med techs. They get a little bit more training. I won't go into detail much about the training for caregivers, but it's extremely limited for the industry, and that's for every company and senior living community and across the whole country. It's pretty crazy, actually, how little education and experience is required and mandated to take care of mom, dad, grandmother, granddad. And I could talk about that for hours, and I'm not going to. I wish there was. I wish the regs were more stringent. The DHECS, Department of Health and Environmental Controls, who regulates South Carolina senior living communities, and so they set those parameters, and they're not very high. I wish they were a lot higher. Yes, we have a question.
All of the people that work at facility, what's the normal staff resident ratio?
So per DHEC, you have to have 1 to 8. So 1 staff member per 8 residents. And that's during the peak hours, which they designate to be 7A to 7P. Typically, there are 3 shifts in-house for each senior living community. And that's, first shift would be 6A to 2P, second 2P to 10P, and then third, the overnight shift, 10P to 6A. So typically the first and second shifts are from 6A to 10P. There's way more than that. From 7P to 7A, the regs state 1 per 30 residents, which is kind of outrageous, I think. So from 10 for third shift, so from 10P to 6A, there's typically, for instance, say you have 50 residents. From that time, you're only going to have 2 staff members in the community. I mean, think about it. I'd say 95% of the residents are sleeping at that time. And there's very, very little need for medication administration. You know, maybe 2 or 3 residents need to be woken up at 3 a.m. to receive, you know, maybe Tylenol or something. But great question, great question. And that ratio also, important to note, includes management and non-caregiving staff. So you can include your maintenance director or your housekeeper in that ratio.
Many of us have long-term care insurance or bought it years ago, have no idea how much what kind of policy we should buy. How much should we be thinking about per day to be spending on long-term care? Question number 1. Question number 2 is, do all residents pay the same, or is there any need-based involved?
Great question. Probably one of the most, if not the most important question that people ask. Yeah, the question essentially is, what does it cost to live there? Specifically, the question is daily. And then is it the same cost for everybody? No, it's totally case specific, based on your needs, really. And 2 things. So the cost, they're essentially divided 3 ways, but really 2. Your room and board, so essentially the size of your room, as well as the view of your room. Some rooms have better views, like where we are. We're at Summit Place at Beaufort. I didn't want to come up and espouse particularly our senior living community. I just want to talk about senior living in general. But I am at Summit Place at Beaufort. It's on the bluff on Boundary. There used to be a really cool haunted house there back in the 80s, I remember, on Pickpocket Plantation Drive. Now there's a Waffle House, and I love using this landmark. It's behind the substation 2. Great singer. So yeah, it's room and board. So based on the size and then the view. Like some of the rooms overlook the bluff there, the marsh, and then some overlook the parking lot. So that determines the cost of the room and board. Then you have your health costs. So it's called the level of care. We have 6 different levels of care. Some places have 4, but typically it's 4, so between 4 and 6. And that's determined. It's a point system, and it's just determined by how much help you need on an average day and what you need help with. Like I said before, it's called activities of daily living. So it's dressing, grooming, bathing, ambulating, so getting, say, from the bed to the wheelchair, or from your room to the dining room. Or we do activities. I'm sure most of you know about that. We have typically 5 or 6 fun activities a day, whether it's arts and crafts or exercises or music. We have live musicians come in. Because, I mean, mainly the prerogative is to keep the residents as active and stimulating on a daily basis as possible. At the end of the day, it's their liberty to not do it if they don't want to, but we highly encourage them to all participate in activities. So going back, so what does it cost? Again, it depends on a couple factors. One being what community you're at. Well, first off, independent living is typically half as much as assisted living, and then assisted living is about half as much as skilled nursing. Memory care. So for us and our caliber of community, assisted living community in town, in Beaufort, and that's another determining factor, of course. When I was in Charleston, they're more expensive than here. So us, some of the places Beaufort, Morningside of Beaufort, which is our sister within the same company, the Retreat, I believe River Oaks is part of in our same class. You're looking at, for a month, I'd say on average, $4,000. So that adds up, 50 grand a year. Heck, they even have buy-in communities. Anybody ever heard of Bishop Gadsden in Charleston on James Island? That's the same monthly cost, but you also have a buy-in. The minimum buy-in amount is $250,000, and the maximum goes up to $750,000. And once you pass away, none of that goes back. No assets, the room, nothing goes back to the family. They just sell it to the next person on the list. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So I'd say average around here for the higher quality assisted living communities, you're looking at about $4,000 a month. Now you can share rooms. Some people share rooms mainly for cost efficiencies. So if you share a room, you're still looking at $3,000. Yeah.
When I came back from Columbia, I rented from a lady, and her and her sister lived together next door to me, and every time Ruth would feel herself getting down, she would check herself in the bedroom, and after being stimulated and fed and medicated correctly, she'd come out a different person. Now, let's say somebody was a caregiver here for someone, but needed to go out of town. Do you take anybody in for a short period?
Yeah, Linda, it's called a respite stay. We definitely do that. Most assisted living communities have length of stay minimums. A lot of times it's 1 month, but it's income that they're not going to turn down. So if you hear that, I would still inquire. Like ours is on paper is 30 days. We're having somebody come in the end of this month for 1 week. So again, that's revenue that we're otherwise not going to have. Also, it's a great opportunity for us as a senior living community to try to impress them and show them what we can do, and hopefully for us monetarily, they'll want to stay permanently. So yeah, we definitely do respite stays. And that is by day. It's, for us, it's $175 a day. And that covers everything. It covers your meals, your medication management, transportation if you need it, housekeeping, laundry, anything, everything.